Hey everybody, it's Steve again. Welcome to my channel. Still working it out, which is, as you all know, the ones that are familiar with me. I'm 57 and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, I guess. I'm in a trucking school, as I tell you guys, but I've been having issues with trucking school lately. So it's a program in transition. So the last few times I've showed up, I haven't even gotten to drive or anything like that, so it's kind of silly for me to even go there, but I do need them, so I'm getting involved in trucking as a 5-year plan to stack money, to stack and invest money so that I can open my business. So anyway, I'm home a little early. And Frankie is still alive. He's holding on, which I really appreciate. I've been sleeping in the living room last few nights because he's frail enough to where that he can't get up in the bed with us, and it's messing with his head. And he's wandering into other rooms at night and like forgetting where he is, I guess, and he starts meowing, being scared. So anyway, I'm sleeping out in the living room. That way I can kind of keep an eye on him. He's losing his abilities to like even walk and things like that fast, and he's not eating anymore, and he's barely able to drink water. I don't want to take him to the vet and have them give him a shot and kill him, because the very last thing he remembers on earth then is being in a strange place, feeling pain of the shot, and he would just be scared the whole time, and I don't want to do that to him if I can help it. So he doesn't seem to be in pain right now. He just needs to the hardest thing is getting Ginger Billy, who is one of my other kids. He's the youngest of the bunch, and he's a very good eater, so it's hard to keep him out of Frankie's stuff. I buy him special food and stuff like that. I give it to all of them because it wouldn't be fair to not give it to all of them, but Ginger Billy will go eat his, and then if there's anything left after Gracie's, she'll eat hers, and then he'll end up going and digging into Frank's, so I got to run him off of that once in a while. Anyway, that's my problems right now. So we're taking care of Frank while he's in his last days. So I've had him for 17 years. Yeah, it's hard, and he's been a good little friend. They all are, really. He was a kind of an amazing character from the time that I found him. He came to my mom's back door and he was meowing out through the glass back door, and he was probably about maybe 6 months old at the time, and skinny. You could see every bone in his body, and he was soaking wet. So I think he tried to get a drink out of my mom's above ground pool and fell in and got out, luckily, and he smelled like raw sewage, and our pool did not smell that way. So who knows what he had going on, but he was starving to death. The first thing he did, though, when he walked in, I opened the door, let him in. The first thing he did when he walked in, I had a 90-pound black lab who was the sweetest fella, that I've ever met as a dog. But he was gigantic, and he was a black lab, and there were other cats in the house at the time, and they were all terrified of him, and they'd been around him for quite a while. And so you could always tell he was always felt self-conscious about the fact that because he was the opposite of that. He was the sweetest person, dog, and never barked. He barked once a day. One time he'd let one yelp out when the mailman touched the house. But Frankie walked right up to him without any fear whatsoever and stood up on his hind legs and fuzzed his nose. And Charles just looked at me like, "What do I do, Dad?" I knew that was a special kid right there at that moment. Just like Ginger Billy. I found Ginger Billy on the roof of a house a couple winters ago, like 5 houses down the street. It was an abandoned house. He got out of the house through a hole in the roof, and it was a really tall 2-story. Still have no idea how he got up into the attic, but the house was abandoned and it was empty and stuff like that. And it was, there was snow. It was like 20 degrees below zero, like 5 or 6 o'clock at night. He would have frozen to death that night, probably. At the time, I couldn't tell that he got out onto the roof from the roof. I thought maybe he climbed on the roof, but anyway, he was a good 35 feet up, and I had to call the fire department to come pick him up. And he was just the friendliest. I mean, I was just going to give him away. I just was trying to rescue him and to give him away. He's my 3rd cat. I didn't want 3 cats. You're quickly approaching into the cat lady number when you get there. But while I was basically calling around trying to find somebody to take him, I noticed something about him. He was the friendliest cat I've ever seen in my life. The other 2 cats that already lived there were mean as shit to him, including Frankie. They didn't want to have anything to do with this new cat. Which is real typical cat behavior. He didn't growl. He didn't hiss, not once. The times that Frankie smacked his face, or the many times that Gracie smacked him in the face, he just would fall over like, "What did I do? I don't mean you guys any harm." It was funny. I think he might be a little bit light in the IQ department. I'm not sure, but he is the sweetest boy. And so Gracie came to me just because somebody wanted to give her to me, and I said, yeah. And she's been a great cat too. But both of those kids I've had cats my whole life, and both of those kids are the rarest, most unique personalities that I've ever seen in animals, period. And anyway, so you collect what you collect, I guess. So enough of that. So I was watching David Clayton. He's a TikTok guy, I think, but he's maybe getting over a little bit into YouTube. I wish he would switch to YouTube. TikTok's kind of worthless these days. And anyway, he doesn't post that much in YouTube. He goes by David Boomer, but his last name is really Clayton. He actually ran for North Carolina, Senate or House of Representatives, something like that, Congress. And I don't know how that went, but I've heard no news about him being elected. But he also doesn't post very much so it could easily mean that he's too busy, being a congressman now, or something entirely possible. He'd be a good one. He's a good person, and he says a lot of the same things that I think, So I'm not a hardcore lefty. I never was either. I've never been a member of either party, but I was actually usually in the middle. I voted for George Bush Sr. Back in the day, my first vote ever, and I was dumb. I was in the military, and he said that he would give people in the military a 10% raise, and I was like, well, shit, that sounds like a good reason, and so I voted for him. But when Bill Clinton came around, I actually voted for him too. So I voted, George Bush out of office. But I could tell right away Bill Clinton had a really, really remarkable background, very smart person. And he solved a really big problem that we had at that time, which, and I voted for him the second time as well. So I'm not a hardcore lefty or definitely not a hardcore righty. I was kind of right in the middle, but the goalposts sort of got moved on me. So now I'm a little farther left than I used to be. Only because, and I haven't moved at all. My personality and my thoughts on voting and stuff haven't changed in the slightest. I vote for whoever's best for the country at the time. The attack on Iran, I'm not against. We've been having really big problems with Iran since I was, 17 in the military, and it's sort of like North Korea. They're constantly causing problems, and they've fired on our ships and stuff many times. I don't know how we didn't destroy them at those times. I've always been a little perplexed. Never been upset about it, but I've always been a little perplexed as to why we didn't mess with them, because they've been trying to get nuclear weapons and to make nuclear weapons, and they're very intelligent people. So there's no reason why they can't, And they're in a part of the world where they've got oil and things like that, so they've got money, and they've been helping our enemies for quite a while. So I'm not a Trump person in the slightest way, but this is one of the things that he's doing for the wrong reasons. I know that for sure, but at least it's something that's actually happening that I don't disagree with. I feel very bad for the Iranian people, but I always have. And the Iranian people have had an opportunity to leave that place for a long, long time. And if they haven't by now, they're not going to. And, if the Trump thing gets worse than it is, instead of leaving it, because I've considered that, but instead of leaving, I've decided that I'm going to stay and defend things that I promised I would. And it doesn't mean I'd win. It doesn't mean I wouldn't even think about doing it for glory. I would just be keeping my promise. I would try to do it as intelligently as possible, as legally as possible, until it's not, when they make stuff that's right against the law, people that are doing the right thing are outlaws. It's just the way it is. Being within the law has never been a giant thing for me. I wanted to be a cop after the military, but I realized it wasn't for me. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was. I was raised on westerns and cowboy or cop shows and things that were all fiction and 100% fiction. And when I was a sheriff's reservist in Iowa, I found out that the job was very different than what I'd been led to believe. And so I stopped going to school. I quit the job that I had at the time, and then I quit the sheriff's reserve, and went towards something else. And I was kind of lost at the time anyway from other stuff. But what I'm not lost about is what I'm paying attention to, kind of like David Boomer. To my horror, it looks like it's getting closer and closer and closer, and I keep on trying to tell myself maybe I'm just having some kind of weird fantasy, or I don't want to have a fantasy about like war shit and all that kind of stuff, to be honest. But it's one thing as an American, whenever you're doing war stuff, you do it somewhere else, somewhere very far away, 7,000 miles away or some shit like that. So yeah, if you wanted to be a warrior, rah, 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 you didn't have to wreck your home. You didn't have to wreck your family and the people that you love and all that kind of stuff. But now this shit's here, and it's only fair that it is, to be honest. I mean, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, everything, the Middle East, it's always been somewhere else. We haven't had a war here since the Canadians burnt down the White House, and whether Trump wants to or not, the Canadians are the best allies we've ever had. Whether he wants to see it that way or not, I don't care. He doesn't care about America at all. Trump doesn't. Not in the slightest. It's all dollars and cents. With him, it's literally follow the money, and that's where you'll find where his loyalties lie. But anyway, I'm watching. It looks pretty obvious that Donald Trump is really, really, really hardcore aiming toward martial law. I don't know if he'll be able to get there, because it's kind of like that guy in South Korea that tried to declare martial law, and his country didn't put up with it, and it didn't work for him. I think Donald Trump will run into the same thing. I think that our militaries at this moment, and that our law enforcement agencies at this moment, whether it's local police departments and sheriff's departments, all the way up to the FBI and DEA, all that stuff, I think there's enough people in each one of those agencies that are still normal, decent people that believe in the rule of law, just like in the military. You might you have just the same level of idiocy that you have in the private life, you have in companies and businesses and military units and police departments and stuff like that. Same percentage exists, and so we're all going to resist. We're all currently, most of us are resisting, and if it requires it, I'll go to the next level, just like a lot of other people will. And the next level, hasn't really been very well defined until recently. I kind of helped. I figured it out based on what other people have been saying. But if Donald Trump calls off elections, that would be a next hope for him, I'm sure. And if Donald Trump starts scooping up American citizens, and shipping them off to other countries or whatever, those two things are kind of like Nazi Germany in the 1930s, were the defining moments that went from authoritarian to dictatorship. And we might have an authoritarian government right now, which we do. And there's definitions for that. A lot of the power has been centralized, consolidated and stuff like that. A ton of really key people have been fired, whether it's military or, different types of law enforcement and political systems. And his first term had a lot of responsible people. Maybe I didn't agree with politically, but they were responsible and they believed in America, and they believed in the theory of right and wrong and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't have that around him now. He's installed a bunch of just clowns and to make a big clown car so that there's nobody saying no. In fact, there's plenty of people around him that are giving him bad ideas. So that's what this video is for. Basically, just to tell people that what I'm waiting for is, a few things. When the midterms, I'm doing these videos. I'm telling people when I get a chance. I post on Facebook all the time. If you want to look me up on Facebook, it's Steve Underwood. And I'm out of Iowa right now, out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I'll if you want to friend me, I'll friend you back. And so I tell people on that, but I'm sure I've also I don't love the political stuff. And so over time, the people that were hardcore MAGA, I've just, blocked them and stuff like that. So I don't really reach a lot of people that probably need to hear it, but I don't really think they're listening anyway. And I'm sure that there's a ton of my friends that are just sick of me saying anything, because I do stand up for what I think and I say what I think to nauseam. And I'm sorry for you guys having to deal with that. And on YouTube, I'm doing the same thing. So I know it's annoying, and I'm really sorry. I'm hoping that somebody sees my stuff and something resonates. But part of what I'm doing is just that I'm trying to be effective in this. If you can think of something that would be more effective, somebody recently told me that they don't have the attention span. Somebody I admire, that they don't really have the attention span for some of the long stuff that I write. So I'm trying not to do that anymore, and like on Facebook and stuff like that. I took my videos from being an hour to half an hour, and I probably should cut that in half even. But if my stuff is boring or annoying or whatever, say something, please. I appreciate good advice. I take all advice, even from people that I don't agree with, because everybody has something good that they know. It's a skill that they have or whatever. I have some very good friends and some close relatives that feel very differently politically than I do. And I listen to them because I care about them and stuff like that, even though sometimes I think they're nuts. Something happened to them. But I am no champion. I'm just lucky that I, for some reason, saw Trump for what he was a long time ago, way before his political stuff. But anyway, I'm voting. Whenever I get a chance to vote, I vote. And I've never been a Democrat or a Republican or anything like that. But I'm not ever voting for Republicans again. there's just been too many things. Every Republican that I even remotely admired, they've kind of flushed down the toilet. So even if I was at one time going to vote Republican again, the people that I admire that I could vote for that happen to be Republican don't have a job anymore there, So there's been a ton of people that I really admired, military people and stuff that came out as Republican. A lot of military people don't come out as anything politically, and there's laws about that even. But those people have quit the Republican Party and have not necessarily joined another party, but they're fighting things that the current Republican Party is representing. And I don't believe that the current Republican Party is Republican anymore. What it used to be, what Republicans were in 1980, are extremely different than what they are now. And people like John McCain, who, like I say, I didn't agree with what he believed and what he was fighting for sometimes. I admired the man greatly, and he wasn't always a great man. But at some point, and he was the son of an admiral. At some point, he had a really tough break in life, and he learned a lot of shit from that. And then I really, really started admiring what he did and what he stood up for. In my opinion, he was the last, what I consider, honorable Republican. Liz Cheney was fighting for, against Donald Trump for a while. The difference is that Liz Cheney didn't feel the same way as McCain did. She was just against Donald Trump because, he did stupid shit to her. It's sort of like Marjorie Taylor Greene was all for Trump and and then Trump, turned on her. It's not like I support her. She stands for everything that I'm against. She's not a good, smart person, and she's definitely not a good person. She just had her limit, which God, I would hope everybody does. But there's a ton of people right now that their limit has come and gone, and so they're for sale. And that's really what it's about for a lot of people. That's certainly what it's about for Donald Trump and anybody that he admires. It's all about money, It's the classic class system thing. It's like the wealthy and the poor. The poor make up, I'm the poor. The poor make up everybody. If you're not stinking wealthy, you could make $100,000 a year and you're still poor compared to people that make $300,000 or $400,000 a year. If you make $5 million a year, but you don't support people that are doing the wrong thing, you're a good person. Bill Gates is a fine example of that. I never admired Bill Gates until I started seeing him in his after his time with Microsoft. He was then suddenly not just donating, but working hard, using his gifts to try to help people around the world, trying to help eradicate diseases, trying to help people in third world countries have clean water and stuff like that. I admire that. For a while, I thought I could admire Elon Musk. He was trying to do, take us to space. He was trying to, fix the environment with electric cars and this thing about, boring tunnels underground, because I thought that was a brilliant thing, seeing as how there's things coming that eventually is going to make us go underground, But then after a electric vehicle summit that Joe Biden made a horrible mistake on, capitulated to some big money people in the automotive industry, and he snubbed Elon Musk. And then suddenly Elon Musk lost his shit, literally lost his mind, and showed us his true colors. Now, the only thing I've found out that was really who Elon Musk was, according to everybody that I've read about since, that his engineers and people that worked for him doing those things for many years before that knew he was just evil, He was maniacal, and then he just started. He got to the point where he had what you call "fuck you" money. Okay. And it was when he started doing the rocket thing. When that paid off for him, the amount of money that was coming in from governments and stuff was outstanding, way better than anything else he ever did by far. When he got that level of money, it took him from being a person I could actually admire, who seemed like he had a soul, to somebody that just signed his soul over to something else, And I'm not a religious person. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about somebody who is, who I thought mistakenly, was trying to do something for the humanity itself, for the earth itself. And I found out it was just all about money, apparently. And, so yeah, I don't support that guy anymore, but live and learn. The longer I live, the more I find out I don't know stuff, every time I think I do know something, I live long enough to find out that I was incorrect. So don't get married too fast. My first 2 marriages, I'm on my 3rd now, but I think that'll last. But on my first 2 marriages, I got married 2 months after I met my wives. Now you would think, okay, as a dumb young person, you should have known better, right? But boy, the second time you really should have known better, right? Not necessarily. Yeah. You should not get married. You should not even consider getting married for a solid year after you get divorced, because you're injured at that time, emotionally traumatized. And yeah, the more I find out, the more I realize I've been wrong this whole time. So anyway, the whole point of this video was to say that keep doing your part. Stand up and be counted. Don't be brave. Don't be a coward. Do not cower. It will not pass you by. This is the kind of storm that scrapes the ground. There's no way to get low enough. Even going underground won't work. Okay? Don't cower. Stand up and be counted. Be brave. You don't know the impact you'll have on other people. And everybody needs to get together, as many people as possible, and be brave. The Civil War took a lot of people. The Revolutionary War took a lot of people. People had to be brave. They could have, the Revolutionary War, American Revolutionary War, we took on the most powerful country in the entire world, and just stood up for ourselves, stood up for what we believed in, and it worked. It worked. The Civil War, everybody thinks that they had all kinds of different reasons to do it and stuff like that, but it ended up being literally just about money. Rich people wanted to keep slavery going because it was cheap labor, and that added up. There's a mathematical equation to it. And the rest of us, that were involved, not me, but the rest of the people involved, half of my family was my father's family was on the southern side. So I don't have any kind of high horse to sit on. But there were people that understood that slavery was wrong. There were people that understood breaking up the United States was wrong. And, in the face of violence, in the face of disagreeing with our family, in the face of violence, people stood up for the right thing, and we won. In the face of political turmoil, Abraham Lincoln paid the ultimate price, because after it was all said and done, he still got killed, while he was, still the president. So when the time comes, I'm going to come out of the woodwork with the things that I know to do, whatever that might be. I'm going to vote. I'm going to stand and yell at protests. I'm going to be one of the people that are counted. And if I get mowed down, or if I get, whatever, it'll happen the way it happens, but I'll be on the right side, because I know right from wrong. Anyway, that's what I hope everybody thinks about. This is my channel. It's called Still Working It Out, Life on the Road, because in a couple months I'll start my life on the road as I drive truck and stuff. So it's been 30 minutes. I'm going to call this done. And happy early March to everybody that's watching. Please like and subscribe. So hit the bell, make it turn white, You know how to do that. And then the subscribe, you just hit the subscribe button. I don't want you to pay any money, but it just makes it to where that I'm one of your people. You know, my channel is one of your group. It doesn't cost you anything. And then if you hit like on there, I really appreciate that too. And it would help me get to where I can open my business faster. Maybe I don't have to drive trucks for 5 years. So I'd love that. My wife would love it too. So anyway, thanks very much. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching my channel. And stay strong. Stay together. And I love you guys. Take it easy.